Don't know about you guys, but I'm thinking maybe Ruben Amorim should change his formation because it's just not going to work, is it? Welcome back to the Promised Land podcast. I'm talking after Manchester United have just knocked Arsenal out of the FA Cup on penalties. And of course, I was joking at the beginning of the podcast. Welcome back to the show. I'm jumping on just after I've heard Ruben Amorim talk about potentially a turning point. I'm very hesitant to call it a turning point because obviously we've been here many times before where a new manager's come in, United have had a massive performance and a big result. And then you think things are going to go okay. And you think finally this is where United turn the corner and it just doesn't end up working out. But it does feel today over the last week, go into Anfield and draw in 2-2. They could have won the game in injury time with a Harry Maguire shot that went over the bar. But the performance was good. The application was good. The players seemed committed. And obviously a difficult FA Cup draw this was when this came out the hat. United were not favoured when that draw was made to come through this game and to win it. But they showed the same application. They showed the same fight. They were down to 10 men for 60 minutes in this game. I think Diogo Dalot got sent off around the hour mark. You play 30 minutes in the game in the 90 without him, and then 120 minutes or an extra 30 minutes in extra time. A man light. And Arsenal had their chances, but I think overall, I haven't mentioned the referee yet. Maybe I will mention the referee at some point in this podcast as well. I think United deserved this because of the fight that they showed and because of the desire. And I've just seen Manuel Ugarte tweet just before I started recording this. You know that quote that goes round? Or that screen grab of him doing an interview that went round and you see the subtitles or the captions of what he said. And he said, when we have the ball, it's a game. And when we don't, it's a fight. And he's just... I think it's his Twitter account anyway. It's not verified, but I think it's his Twitter account. When we have the ball, it's a game. When we don't, it's a fight. Let's keep it going together, Man United. Manuel Ugarte tweeting that just after the game. And I think that's a bit of what it was today. I thought Ugarte typifies the energy and the work ethic in this team that Ruben Amorim has been craving to get out of these Man United players. He's needed it. And for me, he's got it in the last two matches at Anfield and at the Emirates. And of course, United have gone and won this game and progressed to the fourth round of the FA Cup via a penalty shootout. 5 fantastic penalties. Joshua Zirkzee turning things around from a few weeks ago where he got an awful reaction when United were in utter disarray at home to Newcastle, to the point where I think he's just put in his best performance in a United shirt to date. And he scored the winning penalty as well to send United through. So yeah, I'm gonna reflect on the game. I'm going freestyle here. There's no notes at all, so I do apologize if I jump from place to place. But I just had to jump on and talk about what could be a significant day for Ruben Amorim's Manchester United. But I will caveat it with this: United's next game is Southampton, and this will be my message throughout all this game, throughout all this podcast. That application, that effort, that intensity, that level of care, the calm in the right moments, that all needs to be there regardless of the opponent. Regardless of the opponent. It's Southampton up next. I think United have Southampton, Brighton, and Rangers in their next 3 games, all at home. And you can go to Anfield and put in a good performance. You can go to the Emirates and win in the FA Cup, but it'll ultimately mean nothing if these players don't channel that same energy into every game they've got coming up moving forward. And I think Bruno Fernandes even said that, repeated that message. He's the captain, repeated that message in the post-match interview I saw him do on the pitch with the BBC after the game. So hopefully, fingers crossed, I'm holding, if you're watching this on YouTube, you will see that I'm crossing my fingers. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, I am crossing my fingers down the camera lens, hoping that this can be a turning point for United. But massive, massive result today. And very, very happy. I think we can all be very, very happy. And I'll be talking about the game and what I thought of it over the course of this episode. But please subscribe to the show if you've not done so already on Spotify, Apple, and on YouTube as well. Particularly would appreciate your support on the audio platforms. If you've not supported or subscribed to the podcast on those platforms yet, or your any audio platform, I believe that this podcast is on pretty much all audio platforms. Please subscribe to the show, and please give this a 5-star rating or whatever rating you feel like is appropriate. And leave a comment on the YouTube video, like the stream as well. And please subscribe to the channel on YouTube and follow me on social media at @Scott Saunders on X, Instagram, and TikTok. And I'm on Blue Sky as well. The link is in the description. And at TPL MUFC on X as well. Maybe I'll open in the next few weeks some TPL MUFC social channels on the other platforms that I've just mentioned. But yeah, really appreciate your support. Really appreciate your engagements and messages and everything over the past few weeks since I announced that I was going to try and take this on a little bit more seriously and bring more episodes to you around Manchester United and hoping for better days. And I think today is one of those days. United have progressed in the FA Cup. And now Ruud van Nistelrooy is coming back to Old Trafford with Leicester City in the FA Cup. 4th round. But yes, good news today. I think what this was a performance that it lacked. It did. I think United's quality on the ball, as Amorim has said in his post-match press conference, I think we need to be better on the ball. He did say that. And I'd agree with him. But I think the most important thing that he was after at the beginning, and think of all the criticism he's had. That's why I started the show with maybe he should change his formation. Think of all the criticism he's had over the last few weeks for not being able to get a tune out of his players and for his players not maybe understanding the positions that they needed to be in or any tactical instructions because they hadn't really had the time to work on it. And Amorim obviously reminded us of that over and over again as United were playing games every 3 days. But what we've seen in the last week is a clear week ahead of the Liverpool game, a clear week ahead of the Arsenal game, more time for the players to be able to work on what Amorim wants them to do, more time to drill the message home as well of you give your all, your absolute damnedest in every single game. And that is the minimum requirement. We've seen United do that now in the last 2 games, and obviously it needs to continue. It's about drilling that message home. And what we did see today was, yeah, maybe there's some shortcomings with the style of play and what United do in attack. United were not great. For a lot of the game, especially in the first half, United's attacking threat was non-existent, essentially. I saw criticism for the likes of Rasmus Højlund, who was subbed and just rotated out for Joshua Zirkzee. And I thought Zirkzee came on and had put in probably his best performance, as I say. But there's plenty of things to work on. But what we have seen over the last week is 2 performances of the required commitment levels that Amorim would have been asking for all along. And I've spoken about don't be sucked into the media narrative, this kind of thing. Think of just a couple of weeks ago, how many videos, how many column inches, how many web pages were saying Amorim should change his formation. His response was always, give me some time to work on the training pitch. And it doesn't matter about the formation. What matters is the commitment, the intensity, and the desire to win. And United have now gone to 2 of the toughest places in the country, 3 if you include the Man City game in December. They've gone to the Etihad, Anfield, and the Emirates, and they're unbeaten in all of those matches. They've won 2 of them. So United can get it done when they raise their level and when they have the desire, when they want to play, when they want to fight, they fight. And we know that these players have talent, but you've got to put in the minimum effort level. And it has to be massive in every single game because there are other teams who will outrun you. But if United are not being outrun and are not fully concentrating, or if they are fully concentrating, then you kind of bring yourself onto a level playing field. And look, I think United today they rode their luck at times. Kai Havertz missed a big chance. It hit both of his arms, to be fair. Martin Odegaard missed a penalty, although Altay Bayindir had his best game for Manchester United today as well. I think there was so many positives that we can take out of this because I think we're starting to see Amorim's message come through. In the 90th minute, I think it was the 91st minute, I think United might have had a corner, and obviously it didn't go to plan, and they had 10 men, and Arsenal counter-attacked. I think Raheem Sterling had the ball on the right side, and I saw Matthias de Ligt sprinting back, and then just because I didn't go to the game today, but I saw the defenders who had to be there. I saw them all running back. De Ligt, the fastest I've ever seen him run. And then I saw a wave of the rest of the players who were in more advanced positions for the corner or for the attacking move run back at the absolute full pelt in the 90th, 91st minute. And I thought, I don't see that very often, or I haven't seen that enough. And Amorim said at the beginning, I want my players to run like dogs, I think is what he said. And we saw it today. We saw it at Anfield last week as well. And fingers crossed, this is a turning point. We will see, obviously. But let's run through the game a little bit in the major incidents, or maybe the major talking points. I think I'll start with player of the match performance from Altay Bayindir. Now, his kicking was bad, generally. The amount of times I saw him kick long and it went out of play, frustrating, massively frustrating. I think he probably could have done better with the goal that Arsenal scored as well. I think he probably could have caught the ball. And then Gabriel scored via a deflection. But goodness me, the rest of the performance, the penalty save in the penalty shootout, the saves that he made within the game, the authority that he showed in certain moments after Arsenal had scored their equaliser. The second half performance I thought was fantastic. And it seemed like a defining performance for him. I think a lot of us had written Bayindir off, and myself, I'd said that as well. I'm not going to sit here and say that I didn't say that. Because I think there are deficiencies to his game, but he had a fantastic day today and thoroughly deserved his Player of the Match award. And I'm really, really happy that he was able to be so decisive for United in such a big game for them. And the way he spoke in his post-match interview as well, while he received that award alongside Bruno Fernandes, was he spoke glowingly about Amorim. He spoke about how all of these players just want to give their best for the supporters. I think the United fans today, always fantastic, on the road. Best away fans in the country, obviously. But there were a lot more of them today because you get a bigger allocation in the FA Cup, although obviously we should have seen more. The noise was fantastic from the United fans. The penalties were taken in front of the United fans as well, and maybe that played a part in how United came through. But I think Altay Bayindir overall he thoroughly deserved that, and I think what we saw today was a number of players. I think that you'd make them relatively unlikely to be the heroes, and Bayindir was one of them. And Joshua Zirkzee was the other as well. I wanted to do a little bit on him because I thought what we saw from him today was, and I tweeted this, everything that I thought or hoped that Zirkzee would bring with him from Bologna to United. I think we saw it today. We saw a different level of physicality. We saw a different level of fight from him, which meant that he's a big guy. I think he's 6'4", 6'3", 6'4". Not diminutive by any stretch. He's a big guy, quite strong. And it's the old kind of adage, isn't it? Although we haven't seen it already. Good feet for a big man. That's what I thought we were getting with Joshua Zirkzee. It's not obviously gone to plan for him so far, but he came on today, and I thought we saw everything from Zirkzee that made United sign him in the first place. I thought he was, every time the ball went up to him, maybe not every time, but most of the time the ball went up to him, it stuck with him. He'd put his backside into the opposition defender. He'd hold them off, and the ball would stick to him. He'd bring it down, good first touch, and distribute it, whether I was to Ahmad or to another player. He had runners around him, and we started to see the best of him. And he nearly as well received the ball back. Well, he did receive the ball back, and he nearly put it near post in extra time, I think it was, but for a good save from David Raya. You know, he looked threatening as well. And I think that type of striker, although maybe you'd want a striker with a little bit more, a bigger burst of pace. I think there's been a lot of rumors, obviously, about him over the last few weeks of, he might end up leaving this month. But the suggestions are that he'd like to stay and fight for his place at United. And that performance for me really kind of underlined the desire that he has. I think if he wants to go and really put in a good effort to fight for his United career and make a fist of it, if we see more of that and more of the performance that he put in today, I don't think we really have an issue. I think it was I'm really happy to see that he was using all of the skills that I think that he has. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who think that he has the same skills as well. There's a reason United signed him in the first place, but it's not really seemed to work so far. But there are, like, really, when you look at him, you think he should have the physicality to be able to deal with English football. And I think the one thing that we haven't really seen so far from him up to today is we haven't seen that. Today, we saw it. Today, we saw him fight with defenders. Today, we saw him carry the ball really well, distribute the ball really well, offer a threat, and then to top it all off, he had the 5th penalty. And all those penalties were calmly dispatched, and his was exactly the same. He runs off, waving his hand like this to the Arsenal supporters, like I think it's to the United supporters actually, but to the fans saying, Arsenal out of the cup, see you later. And I'm just really happy that it just goes to show how quickly football can change, doesn't it? But I'm hoping that I've just named 2 players there among a long list of other players. I'm hoping that this can be the turning point for them. I'm really, really pleased for Joshua Zirkzee and for Altay Bayindir from their performances today, and for Zirkzee getting his big moment, Bayindir getting his big moment with the penalty saves as well. And when you consider all, I haven't even mentioned this yet, really, you consider all this, and United had 10 men for most of it. Like half of that 120 minutes, United had 10 men. Now, just on that, I told you I'd jump around. I'm not going to do this in chronological order or whatever, but maybe I'll just go through things as I think of them. Difficult to do, actually. Having 10 men, I thought, you've seen this so many times before, right? We've seen United, especially against Arsenal as well, take the lead in matches, or take the lead in big matches or in matches against certain opponents, and you think, all right, great. United have a fist of it here. They have a chance. And then somebody does something stupid. And then they concede a goal straight away. And today we have both. And I don't want to... I don't recall the yellow card that Dalot had in the first place and whether that was warranted or not. I'll talk about the referee in a second. I don't recall. But when you're Diogo Dalot, knowing that United have just taken the lead and knowing that United need 11 men on the pitch, really, for the rest of the game, don't go diving into tackles like that. I appreciate the desire to go and, make a fist of it. I love that there's so much fight coming out of these United players at the moment. I love it. And I think that tackle typified the commitment and the desire, but it was just it was a bad decision to make, and he mistimed the tackle, obviously. And I think, it was a warranted yellow card, and I just thought, oh God, here we go again. United have taken the lead. I think they'd executed a game plan really well. I think we could see what United were trying to do, given Arsenal's problems at the moment, with how expansive they are and with how they break teams down. They're struggling to score goals at the moment. The game plan I thought was right today was to go in, keep it tight, defend set pieces better, which United did for a large chunk of the game, obviously, and for all the game. Defend set pieces better and try and make the most of the opportunities on the break that you might get. And it just so happened that the first goal that United scored, or the goal that United scored, came around after Ahmad had won the ball in a duel with Gabriel, carried it forward, made the right decision in the right moment, squared the ball across to Bruno Fernandes, and what a finish that was. Unbelievable. Unbelievable finish. Top. I tweeted Thriker, like the Alan Partridge video. Thriker. Because it was a hell of a hit from Bruno Fernandes. And I allowed myself in that moment to get lulled into that, oh, United are doing all right here. Maybe they'll hold on to win. And then just a few minutes later, you see, oh no, silly tackle. Stupid tackle, red card. This referee was desperate to give a red card for most of the day. I'm pretty sure that the standard was awful. And then United go and concede almost instantaneously after Dalot gets sent off. And you think, oh, here we go again. Here we go again. But hey, wasn't to be today. So I'm very glad that United had managed to hang on in there, even with 10, and progress through to the next round. I'll talk about the referee in a second. That referee, eh? Goodness me. What a shocker. Oh my God. I think we were all tearing our hair out as we saw every single, it felt like anyway, every single little decision go against United. I saw Toby Collier come on, and fair play to him. I have to mention him. I thought he did not put a foot wrong. Did everything right. I think there was a moment as well where maybe he got in position or on a breakaway where the ball could have been squared to him, I think from Ahmad. And I thought, what a moment that would be. Didn't reach him, obviously. I think that was for the Zirkzee chance in the end. But Toby Collier came on, and it seemed like he just touched an Arsenal player twice, and they would fall to the ground, and it would just be the whistle would inevitably come. And it seemed like throughout the entire day that it was 12 versus 10. I know that's a social media joke going around, but like I think on a more serious note, the penalty decision was absolutely laughable. And I know that I'm a United fan, obviously I am. But how like Maguire tries to move out of the way, and like he can't really. And Havertz just runs into him. And obviously, the way that the day was going, you could obviously see that that was going to be a penalty, and there was nothing anyone could do about it because there's no VAR. And I think the point's been made after this game that, let me know what you think of VAR, by the way, and whether you're all for that blood and guts kind of performance and fight that we had today with no VAR. Because it threatened to spill over a few times. I think United were frustrated themselves with the refereeing decisions and how much of a foothold they couldn't get in the game because of all the nitty fouls that they were giving away compared to the ones that Arsenal weren't giving away. It just felt like one of those. But for referees at the moment, I think VAR is being reintroduced in the fifth round of this competition. Just because obviously there's a lot of like lower league teams where the cameras aren't going to be able to be installed, this kind of thing. And it's a bit difficult to manage. But it seems like referees have got to this point, and I think Adam Crafton tweeted this. It seems like referees have got to this point where VAR is there and they know that it's there to bail them out if they don't make a decision. And it feels like that it is a bit of a comfort blanket for them. I think refereeing in general, there's so many issues with it, so many problems with it at the moment. And there were, especially with the penalty decision, to just allow that, in such a big game, it's so soft, so kind of sad, really. But I think it just really summed up the state of refereeing at the moment, that it was so favored in the direction of the home team. And maybe this is sour from me. I don't know, and I'll try not to be. But it seemed like I was looking at things that Arsenal were doing and not getting penalised for, and then seeing United getting penalised for the exact same thing. Kicking the ball away or stopping the momentum of a counter attack. These kinds of things. The referee had an absolute shocker today, and it seems like we talk about that over and over and over again in every single game. And like, who'd be a referee at the moment? It's really, really difficult for them. But at the same time, how much sympathy can you actually have, really? Because when you hear about how they defend the decisions that they make when they go on TV, or Mike Dean goes on TV and defends a decision that's made in the Premier League, even though we all know that it's wrong, and in the moment that VAR overturns the decision or something like that, he changes his mind. It's just so frustrating for everyone, and I'm so happy that in the end the United have come through this, because it just seemed like everything was designed for them not to qualify today. And I don't want to come across as that kind of bias, but honestly, some of the decisions in that game and the double standards with the decisions that United were getting that Arsenal weren't getting, or vice versa, laughable, really was. And yeah, I can't really have any complaints about the Dallo red card, because I think that was in that instance it was a silly challenge for the second yellow. But the refereeing in general was, how do you fix it? How do you fix it? I spent enough of my life talking about referees on other podcasts and other things, so I don't really want to go too deep into it. And I would prefer to just talk about the positives that have come out of this game. And the positives are that United have qualified for the fourth round, and they've gone through and gone to two difficult grounds in the last week and been unbeaten across both of them, and ultimately qualified. And United are holders, and remember that. So it's nice to have, especially when you don't think United are going to get really anywhere near Champions League qualification in terms of the league. But I think there's two cup competitions here where the kind of football that United are playing, and the defensive rigidity and the system that Ruben Amorim has, I think is quite suited to cup football as well. And in the Europa League, I think I checked this because I talked about it the other day. United are favourites to win the Europa League. Even now, after being so terrible, they're the favourites to win the Europa League with the bookmakers, and they've just got through a really, really difficult FA Cup tie against Arsenal, which they were largely not expected to win. They've come through that, and now they have a favourable home tie with Leicester. Aston Villa have drawn Tottenham in the FA Cup fourth round as well. So fingers crossed, United can progress in this competition as well, and we can start to enjoy watching Manchester United again. Because over the did I say enjoyed it today? I don't know, and last week as well. Maybe enjoyment's not the thing, but I think more pride is how I define it. We've been waiting to see this kind of desire and this kind of fight. And I keep coming back to it, but this kind of desire and fight is absolutely fundamental to succeeding in modern football, and absolutely fundamental to succeeding in a Ruben Amorim system. Run like dogs, he wants them to. And I think what we've got over the last couple of games is not proof, but like maybe something to believe in, that the message is getting through. And I said after the Liverpool game that I think going into an Arsenal game away from home will allow another week's worth of messaging from Amorim and his coaches to get into the players, to remind them that this is what is required every single time. And obviously, as I mentioned earlier on, United now go into 3 home games in a row with where they will be favoured to win. I know the Brighton game is a difficult one, so maybe that's a different story. But generally, when United play at Old Trafford, they should be the favourites. And they have 3 matches in a row now. The last thing we want to see is like a surprise. I can't even comprehend a defeat to Southampton. But, getting turned over by Brighton is not something that we want to see. United need to go and back up these last 2 performances now with more performances of the same ilk, with more performances of the same levels of commitment, with more performances where they take their chances and make the right decisions in the final third, in the right moments, because they have done that over the past couple of weeks. So, guys, let me know what you thought of that, because it's just nice, isn't it? It's just nice to kind of be able to escape, even if it's temporarily, from the misery of, watching Man United play football matches and ultimately just pathetically roll over to the likes of Newcastle, because that's what we've had for a number of weeks. But I think, and I'm hoping, I'm a little bit cautious, but I'm hoping that this week could be the turning point, which now allows these United players to buy in, or will make these United players buy into what Ruben Amorim is doing. The transfer window is obviously open. There's plenty to talk about there, which I haven't really touched on yet. Alejandro Garnacho played today, but has been linked with a move to Napoli today. Marcus Rashford could be on his way out as well. And I haven't really talked about that in too much depth, but over the course of the next week or so, I'm sure there will be some stuff to talk about in relation to outgoings. We obviously know that United need more players to be able to come in and bulk out the team and fit into this Amorim system. Players with all of those attributes and those qualities that I've talked about a number of times throughout the podcast already. But yeah, the important thing for me is that we have seen United wake up. We have seen maybe some proof that Ruben Amorim's message is starting to get through, and all that talk about Amorim should change his system, Amorim should change his system, turns out that what he was saying was justified and right. Give me some time. These players need to fight for every ball and in every match, and that's what they've done. And ultimately, they needed to ride their luck against Arsenal today. Arsenal, on another day, score that penalty. On another day, take one of the chances that they had, and United are out of the cup. But that's not how it panned out. United managed to hang in there, show some fight, show some desire, and to come through with 2 players that we thought maybe could be on their way out, grabbing the headlines. That's not to say Matthias, like I've got to say this before I go, Matthias de Ligt, absolutely fantastic. What a clearance that was. Harry Maguire, the turnaround in Harry Maguire over the past few weeks. Think of all of the stick that he had over the past few years. Now he got his head down and is now, look, I'm talking about like perfect fits for this Amorim team. And I had pretty much written off that I thought Harry Maguire would end up leaving on a free transfer this summer. United have extended his contract. And now he's looking like an absolute monster in the central centre-back position. He really is. I think him and de Ligt today, de Ligt didn't have a great game at Anfield last week with the incidents around the goals, but there's a picture of de Ligt after he makes that clearance just off the line, which would have been a certain goal if he hadn't have been there, of him celebrating in the net that he just made that clearance. And that's the kind of fight that I think typifies him as a guy and typifies Maguire as a guy. And I think what we're starting to see is, especially in that central centre-back position, that position looks like it suits them. De Ligt was getting favoured in the middle of that 3 initially, but Maguire's just forced his way in over the past few weeks. And I think, for me, is looking like a natural fit in there at the moment. We'll see what happens and how this team develops. But big shout out for Harry Maguire and how he has turned his United career around to the point where his contract's been extended and he's now, is he a regular in the team? I don't know. Hopefully, we'll see. Lenny Yoro, amazing penalty, fantastic penalty. And there's other players like we talked about Ahmad a lot, Mamadou Ugarte and Kobe Mainoo I mentioned the other day. Maybe I'll talk about Rasmus Højlund on another day because I think he is still struggling to come to terms with this and this system. And I think there's a lot of things that can be true at once in terms of he needs more help or he can be better. I think a lot of this can be all true at once. But I'll finish this episode with a shout for Bruno Fernandes, who started the game. Maybe not the start of the game, but in the first half anyway, he was clipped and the free kick wasn't given. Ended up showing that his boot had been taken off his foot during the course of the tackle. I think it was Gabby Jesus who'd made that tackle. And no free kick and no foul for it. Obviously, he takes his boot off, slams it on the ground, and I think slams it on the ground again and picks up a booking. And obviously, that's a talking point about his petulance and whether he can lead United as a captain. But I think I have my doubts about Bruno as well, him fitting in this system, obviously. But I think he's become so integral to the message that United are trying to send and that Amorim is trying to send with what he's saying publicly. You can only imagine what he's saying privately as well with the players if he's driving that message home about same intensity, same effort in every game. But the quality that he showed today in that moment to score the goal and with the penalty that he took the first up in the shootout, admirable. And I'm really glad for Bruno Fernandes to have that moment as well. There was a time a few years ago where I think he'd be criticized for not delivering in big games, and now he's just starting to do so, and he's been doing so for a while. But yeah, really glad for Bruno Fernandes and really glad for this team of players and for Ruben Amorim as well, because United have qualified for the FA Cup fourth round. They've beaten Arsenal on penalties at the Emirates, put in a hell of a performance. Deserve to win for me as well, just because of the intensity and the effort that they put in. Maybe not the best team footballing-wise on the day, but I think if there's one team that has to ask themselves questions at the moment, it's Arsenal, because they have ultimately failed to dispatch a 10-man Manchester United. They had 120 minutes to do it. Anyway, lots of questions for them, but that has been the Promised Land podcast. Just a reaction from me to you to a massive result and hopefully what is a turning point for Ruben Amorim and for Manchester United. I've been Scott Saunders. Please follow me on social media at @double_Scott Saunders on X, TikTok, and Instagram, and I'm on Blue Sky as well. Please check the description of this show for that link and give me a follow on there. And also subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Leave a like, leave a comment as well. Let me know what you thought of the game. Who was your player of the match? Please get involved, get in touch. And subscribe to the podcast as well on Spotify and Apple and all audio platforms, whichever one you prefer. I'm sure you'll be able to find it on there. The Promised Land, the Manchester United podcast. I've been Scott Saunders. Big result for United today. And fingers crossed we see more. And it's important that that message is driven home with Southampton up next in the Premier League. United need to keep this going and build on it. Until next time, this has been the Promised Land podcast. See you soon, everyone.